Welcome back to our Transport Topics magazine event series, Formulate. And for our next guest, we will be talking about establishing a fleet's oil analysis program. Or our next guest, well, I want to tell you a little bit more about our next guest. She is also featured on the latest edition of Calibrate when we are discussing developing new oil standards. And she is a very knowledgeable person. I've spoken with her several times. Lovely individual. I'd like to introduce Karin Haumann, OEM Technical Services Manager at Shell Lubricant Solutions. Welcome to Formulate, Karin.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on. Glad to have you on, especially a person of your experience. One thing during our conversations when I first met you, we were talking about developing new oil standards, and that just had my, uh, my 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 brain cells going and is wanting to explore that topic a little bit more, and we did in the latest edition of Calibrate. But for this particular moment and this magazine event series, I definitely want to zero in on just one of those things to kind of get that fleet managers get in the weeds of when it comes to scheduled maintenance, and that's establishing a fleet's oil analyst program. So, just in my first question to you, in fleet maintenance, you're talking about the durability and the performance of a vehicle's oil. It factors greatly in limiting a truck's downtime. So I'll ask you, just from your experience as an OEM point for Shell, why is it in a fleet's best interest to establish an oil analysis program?
Well, that's a good question. So, we all know that we've got oil drain interval recommendations from the OEM or the engine manufacturer, which can really be tailored to your fleet and your application. So, it's a way to empirically tailor an oil drain interval or your maintenance intervals to your exact drive cycles and equipment and environment to maximize your maintenance schedule.
One of the things, in establishing such a program, I'm sure that not all the fleets are the same. There's different things to consider. There's different sets of importance that
Sure.
a manager has to consider when doing it. And when you look at the analysis of the whole thing, it's kind of boils down to simple steps as sampling, lab work, and of course the analysis review. But it's much more complex. I'm pretty sure you're about to explain about that process. So just kind of maybe in your conversations, just as your history from your profession. Dictates, what are the considerations that fleet managers have when going through this process? What do you see?
Well, the first thing to consider is establishing a plan and what your objectives are and making sure that your plan is reaching those objectives. So, as you mentioned, all fleets are different. So, what we typically do is sit down with the fleet and analyze the different equipment. What are the engines? How many do you have? What is the ambient condition? What are the cycles? What they're being used for, and then tailor a plan, a sampling plan that maximizes coverage. So we'll identify kind of worst case scenario applications, analyze those, and then you're able to kind of extrapolate that to the rest of the fleet. So that way you know that you've got complete coverage without having to sample every engine every time.
Mhm.
And so really it's setting out a plan in the beginning is one of the most important parts.